$115 an hour. That's what a tower crane operator in New York's Local 14 union can get at the top of their game. But before touching a controller, he spends years on the ground, learning to assemble the very machine he will one day pilot 300 meters high. That's the full picture of one of the highest paid and most isolated professions in construction, from the floor to the control panel. If you like this kind of diving into real careers, leave the like and subscribe to the channel. You enter through the base, literally. Before sitting in the seat of a crane, you spend 3 to 4 years as a helper, the oiler, within the operator's union apprenticeship program. You don't operate anything yet. You ride. Learn how to lubricate cables, inspect hydraulic lines, assemble and disassemble lattice boom piece by piece, prepare the leveling base, calculate counterweights. It learns load lashing and the language of hand signals that any operator needs to recognize amid the noise of a construction site. This phase has no shortcut. It's bench time, floor time, watching time. Union apprenticeship does not charge tuition. You come in, learn the trade, and leave with documented experience, a union card, and, in the end, the right to enroll in certification exams. There is no operator without this foundation. Even those who learn outside the union, in private training schools, go through weeks of classroom instruction mixed with supervised operation before any practical tests. Getting to the crane seat goes through a federal barrier. Since the OSHA standard in Code 1926.1427, no one has operated a crane on a commercial construction site in the United States without NCCCO certification or an employer-audited qualification program. It's not a suggestion. It's law. The path has 2 stages. First, the written test, general safety knowledge, load tables, plus a specific examination for the type of machine mobile crane, tower crane, crawler crane, articulated crane. Then, the practical test, on the real equipment, evaluating assembly, execution of the lifting, and correct shutdown. The practical test fails more than 40% of those who try without formal preparation. The most common reason is reading the load table and using the load moment indicator system. This is not learned by instinct. Private crane schools charge between $8,000 and $12,000 for a 4 to 6 week intensive course that delivers certification ready. The certification itself lasts for 5 years and needs to be renewed. Now you work. And the value of the hour depends entirely on what kind of machine you sit on. Crawler or lattice cranes pay between $38 and $55 per hour. Hydraulic mobile cranes stand between $32 and $45. Overhead and gantry cranes, common in factories and ports, pay less, between $22 and $30, but with more stable journeys and less exposure to the weather. The day begins with the safety meeting and the pre-shift check, cables, brakes, hydraulics, load moment indicator. With each lift, you work together with a certified signalman and a rigger who prepares the mooring of the cargo. You never decide alone whether a hoist is safe. The federal rule requires proper ground conditions, minimum distance from power lines, and documented inspection in 3 layers, before each shift, monthly and annually. The wind rules your day too. Operations stop above certain gust limits, and a crane atop an unfinished tower feels gusts far stronger than those recorded at street level. You learn to read the behavior of the load hanging on the cable before relying on the anemometer. The labor dispatch, for those who are in the union, passes through the local salon. You subscribe to the list, and the calls go out in order of experience and reputation. Good fame, constant work. Bad fame, dumb phone. The elite of the profession works on a tower foot. Tower cranes pay between $60 and $90 an hour on the national average. And in New York, 14 site operators get as much as $95 and even $115 an hour, not counting benefits. The reason for the salary is simple: isolation. Once you climb up the internal staircase to the cabin, you do not descend into anything. Going down and back up consumes about 20 minutes, interrupts all hoisting of the site, and paralyzes the teams that depend on the crane to receive material. Therefore, the unwritten rule of the category is you only descend in real emergency. This creates a detail that no one puts in a vacancy announcement. Tower operators solve physiological needs in the cabin itself, with sealed bottles and disposal bags, removed only at the end of the shift. It's an unglamorous detail that every tower operator accepts before day one. The pay package reflects exactly this reality. along with pension, retirement fund, and employer-paid health insurance. The total package in high-end union squares exceeds $130 an hour. Level 5. The hoist foreman. After years at the helm of a single machine, some operators level up without changing their salary category. They become hoisting attendants. You stop operating alone and start coordinating the entire sequence of hoisting from the site. Which crane makes which movement, in what order, with which mooring team. You read the hoisting plan together with the engineer. You approve or reject a lift based on the load table, operating radius, and day conditions. You are the one who authorizes or cancels a hoist when the wind rises or when the load does not match the informed capacity. This is the function that appears the most in federal accident statistics, and for a direct reason. More than half of crane deaths in the country happen per worker hit by the load or equipment, and about 37% specifically involve a load that has fallen. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration maintains a battery of standards specific to this function: ground condition, distance from power lines, signalman qualification, because most fatal accidents stem from a planning failure before hoisting begins, not during it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics records an average of 42 to 44 crane deaths per year in the United States. Contractors specializing in structures and heavy engineering concentrate most of these cases. Level 6. The fleet manager/equipment superintendent. You exchange the field radio for the maintenance worksheet. At this level, you no longer operate. You manage the entire crane fleet of a company or a large project. Preventive maintenance schedule, machine allocation per work, renewal of certification of each operator, contract for rental of extra equipment when demand tightens. The data center construction boom of recent years has shifted the entire market to this level of management. In January 2026 alone, the country recorded more than $25 billion in new data center projects started, each requiring multiple cranes working in parallel for steel structure, prefabricated modules, cooling towers, and power substations. That pushed salaries for fleet management and operators specializing in heavy lifting into the $80,000 to $90,000 range annually, peaking even higher in warmer markets. Level 7. The owner. At the top, you own the company. Buying a single new tower crane costs between $1 and $2 million, and most companies maintain mixed fleets with multiple machines, financed, insured, and licensed. You need a hoisting contractor's license, liability insurance scaled to the value of the load your machine can lift, and an audited certification program for operators who didn't come from the union. When a lift goes wrong, the name that appears on the insurance policy is yours. The nation's largest heavy lift companies work on multi-year contracts with technology manufacturers, mining companies, and ports, names that rarely make headlines, but that lift literally every skyline in major cities. Demand does not stop growing. Between the expansion of infrastructure, the boom in data centers, and the mass retirement of the generation that entered the craft in the 80s, the industry projects growth of almost 7% per year in demand for certified operators. Someone still needs to hold the stick. Stay safe, brother.